Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lighthouse Sessions. Today, I'm really excited, and I'm probably going to forget things because I'm excited to have my dear friend, Wendy Lipton-Dibner, with me. And Wendy and I have been on this fascinating journey together. So, Wendy, why don't you just tell our audience a little bit about who you are, and then we'll get into what exactly it is that you do.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And obviously who I are is your dear friend. And that's probably the most important thing we need to remember. From a business perspective, I'm an organizational impact strategist, I'm an inventor, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm all the things that we all want to be in our life at some point. I've probably done it. I'm excited to talk with you today about the inventor piece and all the ways that we're measuring impact. So whatever you have for me, I'm here. Anybody who wants to know more about me can look me up on LinkedIn and everywhere else.
I love it. Now, for the record, almost every one of my guests becomes a friend of mine because this is just the fun we have. But Wendy and I have known each other for years. I can't even put a number on it, and I don't need to because we just are those two people that come and go as we need to, and we remember. Now, we're going to dive in and we're going to talk about your role as an organizational impact strategist. But first, I want to hear the moment of inception because I now know you. I'm excited in our new relationship. You're becoming more the inventor, and I want to hear about that spark where you woke up in the middle of the night because I do that and people think I'm crazy. So tell me about the middle of the night and what has come from that.
Well, first, can I just say you are crazy and I love it. You're the kind of crazy that we all need in our life. Constantly being aware of people and their needs and connecting the right people with the right people. So if that's crazy, may the power be with you. So inception. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I've had a lot of inceptions. But my absolute favorite and current all-time brilliance was not my brilliance at all. It was the brilliance of a bunch of humans who couldn't sleep either. And it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was just scrolling the socials because, what else are you going to do at 2 o'clock in the morning? I'm sure everybody could come up with a lot of answers. Let's move on. Um, but this particular morning, I couldn't sleep, and I decided to scroll the socials and started seeing this really interesting thread about people who hated their jobs. And normally I just kind of blow off negativity on social. I'm just not there. But for some reason, there was something about this that sparked me. And I just started reading hundreds and hundreds of people were talking about, I hate my job. I hate my life. I hate commuting. I hate my boss. I hate what I do. I hate everything. Why doesn't anybody care that I'm here? What's going on? And this was going on and on and on. And then all of a sudden, someone said, you know what, guys, I do. I hate my job. I really hate my boss. I can't stand my commute. But I would drop all of that for one instant realization. If someone would tell me that what I do really matters.
It's sad that all people are looking for that same thing, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, who doesn't want to know that they matter in the world, right? Especially who doesn't want to know that they matter to their families and their friends. And when you're spending, anywhere from 4 to 20 hours working, you'd really like to know that what you do matters. So I started to follow the thread that went with that. And all of a sudden it blew up. Everyone was responding. Yes, likes all over the place. He was onto it, and I couldn't stop. I stayed with them for hours just watching their posts and watching their posts. I'm a researcher by training, right? And by passion, frankly. So at the end of the day, I was geeking out on trying to figure out what's in it here, what's happening here. And as you well know, Jeff, I have been working with organizations for decades. We won't talk about how many decades, but a lot of them. So when I see that there's a problem, I have to follow the trail to figure out what is the problem, how did it begin, and most importantly, what can we do to fix it? And as I was following these everyday, normal, brilliant people talking about all they wanted to know is that what they do matters, that they're making an impact, that they're making a difference. The words don't matter. The point is they needed proof of their impact. Now, it just so happened that that's what I do anyway. But the question that was really in my mind, Jeff, more than anything, is ever since COVID, so much has changed. Employee engagement became, like two buzzwords that came together as like this god awful thing instead of a normal thing you do in business,
Yeah.
right? And everybody started talking about it, and everybody from, like Gallup down to people in Twitter and, excuse me, X. And at the end of the day, my question that was haunting me for the rest of the night, I never got back to sleep. How can we fix this? And how can we fix this in a way that doesn't change anything about what leaders need to do? How can we show employees that they matter, that what they do is making a difference without taking any time out of the day? And that's when the idea struck, and the rest is, as they say, history.
I love it. Now we'll get into a little bit more about the software because I think it's absolutely fascinating, and we'll talk about that. Let's step back a second and talk about impact because I think there's a couple of phrases I want to understand. But the first is to you, what is impact? And then let's talk about measuring it and what that does. The impact of impact. Is that what we're going to say?
That'll work. So we start with the definition. So many years ago, I published a book called Focus on Impact that defined impact as the measurable difference we make in people's lives as the direct result of contact with us, our team, and our marketing and our products and services, of course. The key word, of course, is measurable. The impact, the word impact is everywhere now. When I first started 1,000 years ago, I talked about making an impact and people thought I meant, crashing into their car. Now it's taken on an entirely new frame that everyone talks about. What's the impact of our weather today? What's the impact of my job? What's the impact of eating a tomato? The impact piece has become so overused. It's like saying, I love you. Over time, you have to say, I love you because,
Yep.
so that people understand what you're talking about when you're talking about love. Impact is the same thing. So I started to bring this definition to organizations. And then the question became, well, how do we measure our impact? And we did that for over 1,000 organizations, right? Helping them identify what is, first, the difference they make in people's lives, and second, what does that difference do for people? And can we measure it? And how many people are they impacting? And how are they impacting them? And on and on and on. I think the most exciting moment of that whole journey was when I walked on a Delta airplane carrying my book, Focus on Impact. And I asked the flight attendants to introduce me to the captain because I wanted to have a picture of them holding Focus on Impact. And the captain came out and said, I don't know that Delta wants me with a picture that uses the word impact.
Yeah, it does send a negative picture, doesn't it?
Right. And of course, everybody laughed. And of course, everybody took the picture and it was awesome. But at the end of the day, the word is so important that I've come to tell everybody I know, don't use it unless you're going to define it.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that's important of a lot of words because we live in this age where, especially now with social media and with AI, a lot of the words are no longer special and they just kind of, I think one of the words AI killed early on for me was the word unleash because it was everywhere. And it was like, what do you mean by that? But yeah, I think impact is key. Now, I want to pull something out because you and I are both data nerds. We love to explore things. And I'm a firm believer once you can measure something, then you can impact it. Sorry, you can change it. I'm going to run an analysis after, see how many times we say the word impact.
Yeah, there you
But
go.
I love the word strategist. So you're an organizational impact strategist.
Yeah.
And the aha for me was if we know what we're measuring, if we know what we want to create, then we can actually do that with intention. And I think intention is another word that's been overused. But if we plan it, we can amplify our ripples of impact. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's a very big statement. So let's break it down. The more that we measure, the more truth we find, and the more exciting things we find to measure. So I think the key word to keep a focus on is measurement.
Yeah.
What are we doing? And is it nerdy? Yeah, sure. But at the same time, it's intoxicating and it's success producing because it provides proof. And the important word of the year for me has been proof. People want proof that the products and services they engage in, experience, consider buying are going to do what they say they're going to do. And organizations are really good at that, right? That's what marketing is all about. Here are the promised benefits of this thing, whatever is you're saying, right? And so you will get this and this and this, and that's why we can charge 50 times more than our competitor because you get these benefits. Great. Always been how it's always been.
Yep.
Here's what we're changing, and you well know this. Is it enough? The question becomes, is it enough to buy a product and know what the promised benefits will be? Well, it's been enough for decades. Why change it now? The answer is because we can, but let's go on. The real truth is that no organization had ever considered, other than my clients, obviously, but in general, most organizations do not pay attention to what happens after someone receives the benefits, gives their 5 stars, maybe even a written review, and we're done. That's all I care about. Thank you. Please buy again. Let's move on.
Yeah. How do we re-encourage you to come back? And I would argue most of them don't even get past the transaction at the checkout. Okay, you bought it. Have a nice life.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And with all respect to the bajillions of marketing experts who are out there, holding all of these forums and talking to people and doing all this research, at the end of the day, they're still asking the same question. What do you like about it? What's your favorite color? How do you use it? When do you use it? How many people have you shared this with? What would you like us to do differently? All the questions that they should be answering. There's nothing wrong with what is happening in marketing research until you realize it is so limited.
Mm-hmm.
What we've been missing publicly for all these years, my clients did it, but publicly, is nobody looks at what happens next. In other words, let's say you're a nonprofit. Let's say your thing is making sure that communities have easy access to clean water, potable water, right?
Yeah.
How can it get any better than that? And so how do you measure your impact? You measure the number of people that have access to potable impact and how many bottles you brought them, right? Or how many pipes you installed on their behalf, or how much education you gave them. In other words, you measure what you do.
Yeah, most of it is fascinating because it's boring, cold, empirical, and by the way, it's accurate. But who cares?
Well,
How
a
many
lot of people
buckets
care.
did you bring?
Right, and a lot of people care, and especially in nonprofits because it defines funding.
Yeah.
For-profits, it defines profit.
Mm-hmm.
So Did you deliver what you say you were going to deliver? What did you deliver? Did people receive what you delivered? Did they rate it effectively? Because, of course, now that's the holy grail. And at the end of the day, at that point, we're done with you. And all we really want is for you to refer other people to us and come back again.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm doing very different things with my clients and intending to move it out further and further, because in my mind, number one, people deserve to know what happens next. And number two, it creates tremendously more value for the product when you realize how much more your product and service actually does that you never realized. And number three, and potentially the most important thing, is that when people know, when people have proof of what happens when they use a product that they never imagined in 1,000 years, the value of that product or service in their eyes grows exponentially, and it spreads throughout their community because they didn't expect it. So it's very exciting stuff.
I love that. And my favorite was in What Matters Matters Most, where you're talking about the adoption of a puppy, for example. You know, most people's oh, look, puppy, we're happy, the kids are happy, everybody's happy, and then oh, puppy chews. Okay, now we got chewed up furniture. But it's the longer term impact of that puppy that, you know, literally, pardon the expression, but you follow the life cycle of the puppy. There is so much impact from that one decision, and yet we're always trying to time it at that moment when, you know, and I think this is where most marketing fails, in my opinion, is the exact moment somebody's decided, I'm going to adopt a puppy. That usually happens after they've done a bunch of research. Like, it's ignoring things. But when you look at the impact of that puppy, you can start to plan other interactions and make it more immediate or more important.
So yeah, that's great. And if we've talked about adopting puppies, hi Bob Berg, um, our resident lover of puppies, right? I think the most important piece, first of all, What Matters Matters Most that Jeff is referring to is actually a book. There, shameless plug. At the end of the day, the book gives the system of what we're talking about. So let's can we take a moment just to give some more clarity, if that's okay, Jeff?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so we've already defined impact. And it's general, right? So it's the measurable difference you make in people's lives. At the end of the day, what I discovered how to measure, most importantly, is what happens after your initial impact, when people actually receive your products and services benefits. And the answer is called real world impact. In other words, once you've received initial benefits, so a product does what it says it's going to do. Take a company like Definage. Definage has a skincare line. It is more expensive than your average skincare line. So you expect a lot from that product because everybody compares it according to money. When you start to look at the
Yeah.
science behind that product, when you realize the brilliance of the inventor to find something that actually changes skin, that actually moves back the clock. I mean, it's what everybody wants, right? But are they willing to shell out the amount of money that Definage charges for this? And the problem for most companies, certainly not just Definage, is if your product is going for even a penny more than someone else, now you have to prove why.
Yeah.
That's the issue. And the proof comes when you look at, not does the product do what it says it's going to do, not even does it do it better than all your competitors. The value is in looking at the ongoing long-term changes, results, differences, events, experiences, outcomes that people experience in their life day by day, because their skin has changed. Because when they look in the mirror, they're not embarrassed anymore. Because now their self-esteem is growing, because now their confidence is growing, because now they're getting compliments that they're getting on Zoom and people are saying, oh my gosh, what did you do? Did you have plastic surgery? No, I use Definage. Definage, what's Definage? So the point is, when you have proof of real world impact of what happens day by day by day in people's lives that actually change not just how they look, but how they look affects 12 different life areas. That's when you get to call something life-changing because you can prove it. And
Right.
that's the name of the game now.
I love it. And one of the things I'm fascinated by is that you talk about in the book, you talk about the 5 ripples. But also, I see it now if you're looking at the 12 areas and 5 ripples, you're really starting to create a map of impact. And the phrase I want to underline was you said, in their eyes, because I think we're entering this deficit where people don't care what companies say anymore. They want that proof.
Yeah, exactly. So what you're talking about is the 5 components of real world impact. The real world impact system is something that I invented, gosh, 30 years ago. So knowing how to measure that has never been a problem because we have the 5 components. The 5 components are what is the initial impact that happens. So in other words, after you first receive the benefits of a product or service, what does your next 24 hours look like? The next thing that happens is once you've had that 24-hour initial, holy moly, something important is happening here moment, what happens next? That is the ongoing impact, the ongoing real world impact. Again, the changes, the differences, the outcomes, the results, the events and experiences that occur day by day across 12 different areas. When something happens, we call it an impact ripple. Classic pebble in the pond metaphor, right, Jeff? You throw a
Yeah.
pebble in a pond, the pebble creates an impact in the water that creates ripples. Now, those ripples are actually doing something super important. They are changing the oxygen in the water. They're moving the plankton around. They're feeding fish, right? Those ripples do a lot of things. The metaphor talks about the surface ripples. When we realize that impact causes ripples that creates changes in the pond, now we can start asking, well, what are the changes? What are the changes that occur because you've used a product or service for whatever amount of time they said you need to use it before you begin to see the benefits, right? Once you've found it, now you start measuring those impact ripples. You start looking for them. You start trying to find them because it becomes this massive journey of impact where you're looking to discover what's going to happen to me today just because I used that toilet paper, right? At the end of
Yeah.
the day, there are changes that we can literally measure. The next question is, how important was it to me? So great. My skin feels wonderful. It doesn't itch anymore. It doesn't hurt anymore. I don't have to wear foundation anymore. Right. So then the question becomes, what came next? And was it important? And how important? On a scale of this to this, how important really is it that you received this impact from that product? Did it only impact you? Or did the impact actually ripple out to other people in your life? Is it life-changing only for you or for every life you touch? Now, all of a sudden, the importance becomes everything, right? And the next question, which is key for organizations, is, do you associate causality. In other words, what caused what? Is your life-changing experience happening directly because you used this new product or service? Or did it kind of ding dong ding, bounce off of other things that happened because you used it, and now this happened? And the more you can attribute causality to a product, the more money an organization makes. And I'm sorry to talk about it in terms of profitability, but hey, the name of the game, right? So the
Yeah.
reality is, when people start reporting that their new impact ripples are the direct result of using a new product or service, when they start announcing that on social, when they start talking about it at the dinner table, right? Now you're talking about extraordinary marketing opportunity. If you can measure the actual day-by-day impact ripples, the level of importance they received, the degree to which the user found it extremely important and significant in their life and other people, and you use those impact ripples in your actual marketing, then why are you wasting time with 5 stars?
Yeah, I would take real people and real results over 5 stars every day.
Exactly.
And what I love, and I'm a networker, you know that. I love bringing people together. I'm a connector. Sometimes the causality gets forgotten. And I think when people forget the causality, and I'm leading you into this, obviously, but when they forget the causality, they don't value the connection. I've literally brought billion-dollar companies together, and the reaction was, well, we would have found each other eventually anyways. It's like, but you didn't.
Yeah. And all the time you would have wasted trying, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Causality is key for whoever offered the product or service to have your users publicly announce, this would not have happened unless I found this company, is huge. Huge.
And I see a lot of obvious ones in the nonprofit sector, obviously in the medical world. When you're solving pain, it's easy to look at the ripples of pain relief. When somebody has a spinal injury, they'll do anything to get away from the pain, and then all of a sudden it's what can they do because they're away from the pain. Let's talk about actual businesses on the street. The people who follow us and watch my podcast, they're entrepreneurs. They've got their own business. What is the effect of measuring real world impact on a for-profit entity? And then we'll get into how the app makes that so much easier.
Yeah, for sure. I love that question. Obviously, it's like my favorite conversation right now. But at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, the one thing I know more than anything is that when I put my head on the pillow at the end of the day, I need to feel good about what I'm doing. Most entrepreneurs, me included, put our heads on the pillow at the end of the day and say, can we do this? Are we going to make it? Are we going to have to shut down? Right. So there is this constant scariness that happens. Well,
Yeah.
the same thing happens for your employees if you have employees. The same thing happens for your contractors if you have your contractors. Entrepreneurs have this amazing ability to just keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back and coming up with new ideas and new ideas and new ideas. You are the quintessential example, my friend, of someone who comes up with another way to help someone and another way to help someone. You have so many ideas because your brain is popping like 50 million miles an hour. And that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, especially as a solopreneur, we never really find out what happens if people use our services. I don't know if you can see behind me, Jeff. There's a wall that looks like just a bunch of colors
Yes.
on it. Those are
The wall of
thank you notes.
cards.
Right. It's a wall of thank you notes. And I have kept those with me for years and years and added to them as I can. because it was the only proof I had. Money was never it for me. My phrase, as you well know, when you focus on impact, the money will come. Just focus on impact, and I've been doing that since day one. For an entrepreneur, money can't be what tells us we succeeded, or we'll be in trouble. Because I don't care if you're making, $10 a week or $1 million a week. At the end of the day, if you're doing it only for the money, I'm not the person you should be talking to. I'm not. Talk to all of the gurus who are all about making money, and you will make money. And if that makes you happy, may life give you joy. Not my thing. My thing is, did I make a measurable difference in someone's life? And can I prove it to them so they can feel good about what they bought, so they can share it with their friends, so that they can write about it on social or write articles? I want Substacks of every user. At the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, the first thing, my advice, decide what's most important to you. Obviously, you want to be able to have a roof over your head. You want to do the Maslow thing, right? But at the end of the day, the question becomes, why are you doing this? And more importantly, what do you want to feel when you put your head on the pillow at night? If it's fear, then you chose the right career. You're an entrepreneur. If it ends up being pride, gratitude, because you got to change people's lives, that's everything.
Well, and I'm going to pull this back to your awakening as you were scrolling through social media. Entrepreneurs are different people. And I say that because we're unemployable for the most part. But at the end of the day, we want to know that what we did mattered, that we had some positive legacy we left. And I hear a lot of people, and by the way, there's a lot of gurus. They talk about some vague notion of impact and legacy. And it's like nobody ever actually defines it. And me being a numbers guy, I'm like, I can't set a target to, I'm going to increase legacy by 10% this quarter. What does that mean? But when you showed me that I can measure and then target, the closest I come to is, I think it was Fred Reichheld wrote, what was his book, Winning on Purpose, where he said, I wish I would have called Net Promoter Score Net Lives Enriched. And I think that's what you're doing is looking at measuring how we've impacted people. And I can just feel it inside when I think about, I know the impact of something and I've measured it. That's way more satisfying than some vague, sacrifice to the gods and saying, okay, I'm going to make more impact. Great. What does that mean? What is more?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I used to kid around and say, that what do you do? Well, you want to see my scars? Because at the end of the day, being an entrepreneur causes a lot of scars. But you mentioned employees, and I think we should talk about that for a quick second, because this all would never have happened if it weren't for the employees out there. The fact that there are millions and millions and millions of people who drag their butts out of bed every single morning in the interest of protecting their families and making money for an organization and just trying not to lose their job. And bringing their brilliance and their expertise and their loyalty to a company, the question becomes, what can the company do to make it that their employees know that they matter? I mean, if you look at all the things online, what they'll say is, be sure and pat them on the head, right? Be sure and, at least know their freaking name. These kinds of helpful household hints. One of my favorite people is Dr. Elise Cortez. And her whole business is about helping companies make a meaningful thing, right? There's people out there who are doing good work in this in terms of making sure that employees get elevated. The question in my mind is, what do they feel when they get on the pillow? And at that point, they need to know that they mattered. And so when you talk about employee engagement and you look at all the Gallup studies and you see, oh, these horrible numbers, and all of these people are miserable and they're not satisfied and I mean, just completely disengaged. In the book we talk about the 5 million disses that happens with the employees. And it's easy to talk about what's wrong, but doing what's right with all serious respect to every HR specialist in the world. What is happening is employees still don't know they matter. And when
and if I may interrupt there, Wendy,
please.
with all the layoffs, they're getting the opposite message.
Yeah, for sure. So no, you don't matter. We can do perfectly fine. Hey, AI, come on in. So here's the bottom line. When we know that we can give employees concrete, measurable proof of the impact they make every single day by showing them the impact ripples, impact importance, impact causality, ongoing real world impact in numbers, actual numbers, and they get to see these things, all of a sudden they say, holy moly, here I am sitting at my desk. I had no idea this person's life was changing, because why would I think a life would change with what we do here? I'm just typing all day.
Yeah.
But when you get to see the proof in what I call 5-minute impact fests, right? At the end of the day, you get to see every single impact ripple that has occurred for all of your clients or patients or customers, whatever. At the end of the day, beneficiaries, you need to know how people's lives are changing. And if you limit that knowledge to how many did we sell,
how many units shipped this week?
Yeah, you'll never fully engage. Never. You can offer the biggest bonuses in the world to your employees. You can be kind to them. You can give them playrooms in the lunchroom. You can make it colorful. You can put presents on their desk over and over again. You can even give them bonuses for their sales. That does not tell them that what they do matters to people. It only tells them what you do makes money for us. Thank you. Here's a bonus.
Yeah.
That can get pretty irritating.
I'm smiling because I'm thinking about those heads going down on pillows at night. And for what it's worth, my people, your people, our people, they genuinely love their employees, and they genuinely love their clients, patients, whatever you want to call them. I don't ever want to work in that mercenary world where it's just, quarterly this, quarterly that. But I'm just thinking, if the head that rests on a pillow at night is feeling they don't matter, what kind of person wakes up in the morning? Like, you're bringing more negativity back into the world. And what I love is your software. All you have to do is show people how they matter, not just that they matter, but how much they matter.
Yeah, it's really true. One of my favorite people, you've heard me mention it a lot, is Dr. Raj Shaker. He is a pain management specialist at Hartford Healthcare in Connecticut. And when I came up with the idea for the app, I happened to see him that day, right after that 2:00 in the morning. And I said, okay, Raj, I have this great idea. Let me tell you what I'm doing. And I told him about this thing that I was going to build. And he looked at me and he just broke into a smile and he raised his hand. He said, will you do me first? And we got in. It was fabulous. And he went on then talking about how healthcare professionals, providers, staff, right, clinical and administrative, they never know what happens after they provide care. I mean, they go into healthcare to make an impact, right?
Yeah.
But the only impact they get to see is 30 to 50 patients a day every 7 minutes.
Who are all cranky because they're in pain.
Well, for sure. And at the end of the day, that when they come back and they thank their doctors, oh,
Yeah.
I got to go to my grandchild's, wedding, and I could never have done it without you. Thank you. I mean, that means a lot.
Yeah.
And they still don't know how the life got changed, but at least they get to hear something cool. Now, when he discovered that we were actually going to study the ongoing specific long-term changes in 12 different life areas, and that it was going to be no extra work for him or his team, he was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, give me something to give the hospital because we got to get this done.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of stuff that happens when you focus on impact.
Now, do we have to tell people that impact can be very addictive? Should we be warning them or let them find out on their own?
I think we can leave warning labels to the pharmaceuticals. For us, it is addictive. Once you make your decision that you're going to focus on impact, and you suddenly discover that you're making more money than you ever have in your life, just remember it was because you focused on impact. And the more that you start getting those thank you notes, and the more that if you use my app, you actually get to see real world impact metrics, which are actual patent pending numbers that you get to look at every day or once a week for 5 minutes and suddenly realize, holy camoli, that's what my product does. It's very exciting stuff.
I'm just laughing because you literally started this conversation with people doom scrolling and seeing all the pain and suffering in the world on social media. And I just can't help but think how joyous it would be, those heads going down at night if they wake up and can't sleep. They can wake up and look at the positive. So where can people go to learn more about the app, connect with you, find out what exactly you do in your amazing role as an organizational impact strategist?
Thank you for asking. Obviously, you can look for me on LinkedIn. All kinds of articles there, all kinds of things you can learn about real world impact and what it is and how it can affect your business. You can certainly read What Matters Matters Most, and I would really invite you to do that. It's a fun story with a bunch of characters and a dog, but it's actually a truish story of real people in multiple industries who completely turned their entire financial picture upside down and made it all amazing simply by focusing on impact and measuring their impact over time. So you should definitely read that book. And if you're someone who truly wants proof of the impact of your products and services, then just visit realworldimpactmetrics.com, or to make your life easier, proveyorimpact.com. And that will tell you all about the technology. And I apologize in advance if you get addicted.
Sorry, not sorry comes to mind. I will also share, this was my insistence. I begged Wendy to allow me to share this. I'm going to be starting a very unique book club concept in the new year. And in fact, it's not actually a book club. But what we're going to do is a bunch of entrepreneurs, we're going to meet. The first book we're going to discuss is What Matters Matters Most. I actually have a slight twist on this because I decided what we're going to do is we're also going to cover The Go-Giver by Bob Burg, John David Mann. But instead of reading a book a month and going, that was nice, and moving on, what we're going to do is every month we're going to meet and we're going to talk about how the books have impacted us. And I'm a big networking nerd, so I am so excited to see the blend of The Go-Giver meeting What Matters Matters Most, because the people I talk to, they talk about impact and legacy every day. I can't wait to see what we measure just from having a bunch of people who read a book, loved it, and probably got addicted. Next year, 2027, we'll do a recovery program for people who don't like impact anymore. They want to make less money and have more stress. But
There you go.
2026 is going to be an interesting year to explore and measure real world impact, thanks to my dear friend Wendy, the impact lady.
Thank you, Jeff. I so appreciate you, and I'm so honored by the commitment that you've made to measure your impact, to make sure that everyone you know measures their impact. Because if you have so much important things in your head that you're creating all these new things, whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee or an employee trying to be an entrepreneur or a leader in a multinational organization, at the end of the day, you've got to be able to put your head on that pillow and just say thank you for all of you who let me change your life. You know, what a concept. So yeah, we're there. I'm looking forward to joining you on that first book club experience. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm honored that you've chosen What Matters Matters Most to be the first book.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. And we'll have you back to report on how you'll see the impact from what our little book club did. But thank you so much, Wendy.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Jeff.